Hello, it's the cryo lady. Here we go. Let's get into this. So today I'm going to talk about why I became a psychiatric nurse and that subject alone. In following ones, I'll tell you my experiences of interviews and my experience of nurse training back in the 1980s and how it differs today and the unfairness of nurse training. Anyway, and the pay that you get. So, we're going to go in for dogs barking outside like a loony. Anyway, I don't care. So, why did I become a psychiatric nurse? Well, it's simple, because at that point in time there seemed nothing else for me to do. Now, I'll try and make this really quick. My parents moved house multiple times, and at the last count it was 26 or 27 times. And I stayed with them until they got to Somerset, and I left home when they lived in Somerset. They lived in a place called Ashcott, which is just outside of Street. Anyway, my parents decided in their infinite wisdom that it would be a really great thing for all of us who were partway through varying exams and things, or just coming up to them, to move a few months before we were all due to take our exams. And because I'd moved from Derbyshire to Somerset, the syllabus was different for a number of subjects that I'd been taking. So, I'll give you an example. I'd been doing history GCSE, or O-level as it was known then, and I'd studied World War I and World War II. When I moved to school in Somerset, they were doing Tudor history. So I had maybe 3 months to try and cram in 2 years worth of work. And that was difficult. And I had the same with English literature and some other stuff. So basically I came away with very few O-levels. And I had to take matters into my own hands, because as far as my parents were concerned, I'd reached the age of 16, and, you know, they'd sort of, even though I would say they were firm middle-class people, they had no aspirations for any of their children at all. So anyway, I had to, at age 16, I had to take matters into my own hands, and I got in contact with the college that was near to where my parents had subsequently bought a house, Floydie and Janice, and that was Strode College in Street. So I went there with cap in hand and begged them to let me take another sort of raft of O-levels that I hadn't studied before. They agreed. I did my O-levels. I was more successful, and I signed up to go and do my A-levels, because I thought, right, I'll go to university after that. When I told my parents my plans, when I told Floydie and Janice my plans to go to university, they flat right refused to let me go. Now, you know, I was only, 17 at the time, when I wanted to embark upon my A-levels. And so I thought, what's the point? And I actually felt at that point, you know, age 17, I just thought things were a bit pointless. You know, life was pointless, which is a sad way to feel when you're that age. So I decided that it would be a waste of time. I didn't have any guidance from them. As far as they were concerned, you know, if I went out and got a job that paid pennies, you know, as long as they could claw some back from me, they didn't really care. So I decided to go and work as an au pair. Now that's another story. Anyway, when I came back from doing that, I had to go and get a part-time job. I had to go and get a job, not a part-time one. I had to get a job, and I managed to secure a job working for Clark's Shoe Company that was based in Street in Somerset. Only it was only a temporary position, and I think I got something like £40 a week for doing that, which really wasn't very much money even for them. And that was in, like I say, the early part of the 80s. You know, we're talking about 83, 84. Anyway, I've got a hair in my mouth. Anyway, So I worked there doing that for a bit. It was about as tedious as it could possibly be. I had absolutely no social life because I didn't really have a friend group. I mean, I had a couple of friends that I'd met through college, but we all lived so far apart. It was miles and miles apart. You know, it's not like having just friends in a town, I didn't have that. So the whole thing, really, at my age, was quite depressing. And again, once again, I decided I had to take matters into my own hands. Had no guidance from Floyd and Janice. They really didn't care at all. And so one day, I decided, you know that series, The Office? My God, it was so like that. There was one guy that was so like Ricky Gervais. Oh, I just could, just an odious, horrible man. So anyway, and creepy as well, creepy. Anyway, one lunchtime, I thought, sod this. I left the building at lunchtime. I walked down to the job centre and I said to myself, any job that they've got going, that I've got the qualifications for, I will apply for it. Because I had no guidance of any kind. But I was just still trying to do my best, age 18 at this point. I was really trying hard to do my best. So I went to, I went to the job centre. I walked around the boards because obviously we had no internet, no nothing like that at that time. And I saw that they were advertising for student psychiatric nurses at the nearest, at a place called Tonevale Hospital, which was just outside of Norton Fitzwarren and by Taunton in Somerset. So I applied for that. And that is basically that. Now, I had another 2 interviews for psychiatric nurse training. But here's the thing, once you started training, you actually got paid for it. And I got paid far more than I'd ever got paid working part-time. Sorry, why do I keep saying part-time? I didn't work part-time, I worked full-time. Working full-time for clerks with literally no benefits whatsoever. And so, you got paid for the work that you did on the wards, and you also got automatic accommodation in the nurses' home. So I moved into one of the nurses' homes there, and like I say, for the next 3 years, that's where I did my nurse training. Anyway, I'll talk some more about the nurse training, how it compares to nurse training today and psychiatric services. But I'm going to talk about more of the downside of how things were then and how they were for women. Because in all honesty, psychiatric nursing back then, it was more sort of male. Although there are a lot of women doing it, it was really quite a male-dominated profession. And the women that were in senior positions, some of the women, females, that were in senior positions, they would pretty much just side with the men. Maybe that's because they knew, the management was predominantly males. So it was heavily weighted towards males. How much longer? I've only got 26 seconds, so I'll talk about that. And I certainly had plenty of good times there. But, with everything, you have bad times, you have good times, and you have meh times. But overall, I'd say it was definitely a positive experience. And I'll tell you how I coped with homesickness as well, because everyone will get homesick when they leave home for the first time properly. And I was no exception to that. Anyway,